This video is actually about my thoughts about starting to play blues on the recorder, something that I've been doing a bit more in the past couple of weeks. When I first came up with the idea of learning blues on essentially a kind of cheap keyless instrument, there's only two possibilities available. One is the tin whistle and the other is the recorder, and I started actually with the recorder. A few months before I started this channel, I thought I'll learn it on the recorder, and I did that for a while and I just didn't take to it. So I thought, nah, tin whistle's better. I'm gonna make a New Year's resolution that I'm gonna learn blues on the tin whistle, and I'm gonna make a channel about it and just share the exploration. And there were a few reasons why I thought the tin whistle is better. One reason is because in the low octave and in the top octave, the fingerings are the same. Low D, high D, that's actually the only one that's different. You lift your top finger. E, F sharp, G, A, B. Anyways, and so on. Whereas on the recorder, that is not so. On the recorder, not only do you not lift your fingers one by one, you have some cross fingerings where you kind of miss out a hole. But in the low octave and the next octave, the fingers are different to each other. So for example, F sharp, top octave. So there's one example. You also have the thumb hole, which you open by different amounts to get into the top octave and get the notes really clean and clear. So there was just a little bit more going on, a little bit more complex. So that was a reason I thought, yeah, tin whistle is just, it's better, it's simpler. Also, even though the recorder is a chromatic instrument, meaning you can get sharps and flats on it, the full chromatic scale, you can play in any key. Actually, some of the keys, a lot of the keys are really hard to play in, lots of complex fingering changes. So much easier to just go for the tin whistle and buy tin whistles in lots of different keys, especially because they're pretty cheap. For not very much money, you can get a tin whistle that I think sounds really great. This is a Generation whistle that I've modified quite a lot, and price was important to me because I just thought, well, what I like about the blues, the kind of original idea of the blues, is I liked the way it was like accessible to everybody. People were really able to engage with this style, to modify their own instruments, and I've modified this whistle a fair bit. And I've also just really been able to engage with the fact that it's an available instrument. But then, you know, so is the recorder, and the recorder doesn't require any modification in order to play fully in tune, for example, because I've actually altered the tone holes on this whistle to bring it exactly into tune as I want it. I've tweaked it essentially, and the recorder is kind of untweakable. There aren't any tweaks you can do on a recorder. It's just sort of as it comes. I do want to say that there is a lot that I've kind of done on this channel, little videos about how to alter your whistle, but you can play on a stock whistle too. The slight subtleties of being exactly in tune might not be there, and I think that I've increased the volume of this whistle quite a bit with the tweaking, so that's better for playing with other people. I can be heard better. But yeah, you can just go out, buy a cheap whistle and start playing blues. So I thought, okay, this is accessible. Whereas, with the recorder, it's slightly different because I think like it can't be tweaked, which you could see as an advantage or a disadvantage. And also the very cheapest ones are plastic. And I just don't really feel I can get a great sound with plastic as opposed to a more organic material like brass. And recorders don't come in metal. If you want to go more expensive, you go to wood. And I do actually have a recorder made out of wood that I like very much. But for this channel, for the purposes of this channel, I didn't feel that it would be a really kind of accessible channel to give an example of, hey, this is what you can do with a cheap instrument you can go out and buy for £10. If I was going to be demonstrating everything on an expensive wooden recorder. So anyway, one thing about the recorder is it might actually be free. Thinking about it, it might be a better choice than the tin whistle because it might be free on account of you already having one in your house. Most people have to play one of these at school, so you or your child or someone in your household may already have one. When I was learning blues on the guitar as a teenager, the whole time I was learning, actually there was a recorder in the house. I could have just been learning to play all my blues licks on the recorder. But I wasn't, and I think that was just because I didn't have any example of someone doing that. I couldn't see an example of it being done, so it felt like the only way to access cool styles of music was with a guitar, because on the recorder we were busy playing. So I've kind of come back to the recorder. I want to see if it actually can be a really good thing, to have it in plastic, also to have the cheapest possible version, but I didn't actually own the cheapest possible version, so I ordered it. Actually, I ordered this. It's the recorder that I learned on, or the same model at least. It's Yamaha's cheapest recorder at £10. And I got it second hand because I don't like buying plastic new, just be a bit more environmentally friendly. And it was like £3 or something. So, actually could be cheaper than the whistle if you can find a second hand one, and if you just look on eBay, there's hundreds. So this is the cheapest one. And I thought, well, I wonder if that is usable as a blues instrument. It would be good to know that. And actually, I did find it quite hard. I think that it might be a little bit too cheap. I've done a demo for you where I've tried out jamming over the same E minor track that I jammed on with my kind of 4 existing recorders that I like very much, even though a couple of them are plastic. And I thought I'll do it on this really cheap one. But actually I did end up thinking, it was really hard to get it in tune. Even though I know I don't really squeak badly on the other ones, I kind of know I've got my playing method pretty good. I was ending up really fighting not to squeak on this one and occasionally squeaking. So it could be that I'm not used to it, but I also thought, this is just a less forgiving, cheaper instrument. And not only is it less forgiving, I don't think the sound is necessarily as good, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. So there we go, that's kind of £10 for that. The next up price-wise is by Aulos, and that's about £15. And the next one up price-wise that I have is by Yamaha, and I think it's £20 or £25. So there you go. See what you think of me playing the cheapest recorder. See if you think that you'd like me to also start making this channel about playing recorders as well as whistles. Let's kind of recap the advantages and disadvantages. I think that a disadvantage of the recorder is that the fingerings are different in the low octave and in the high octave. But now that I'm getting more advanced, I'm starting to think that that is actually possibly an advantage, because it means that I'm less inclined to play the same thing in the low and the high octave. It's going to give me more variety in my playing. So for example, on the whistle, I might play and then straight away go up the octave. Whereas on the recorder, say I play that same lick, I'm not really inclined to do that up the octave because it's just not very comfortable, so I might do something else instead. I might go, and there we go, I've immediately played something different. So I think it's now giving me something that's giving me some more variety in my playing. But when just starting out with the blues, actually, I think that it's a disadvantage to have to cope with the lower and higher octaves having different fingerings on the recorder. An advantage of the recorder is that it can play in many keys. A disadvantage is that it's challenging to do so. An advantage of the whistle is that it is a diatonic instrument, meaning you can get it in lots of different keys, so you don't have to worry too much about playing in different keys, but it does mean that if you want to play chromatic notes, you've got to do half holding, which is tricky, and when you do want those extra notes in the key you're in, that makes it more challenging. And, depending on how you think about it, also means you've got to buy a lot of whistles, which may not be so accessible price-wise anyways. Finally, the cheapest whistles are still metal, which I think gives them an organic sound, even though the top is plastic. Whereas the cheapest recorders are plastic throughout, and I do think that gives them not as nice a tone. But I do think that maybe in blues that could be okay, because you don't necessarily need a sweet tone for blues. What you need is kind of an arresting tone, something which is going to catch attention. And maybe with the right technique, you can get that with plastic. It certainly made me think more about what's going on with my airspeed and my what's happening inside my mouth with my tongue placement to get different tones out of this plastic instrument so that it doesn't sound so plastic. So I think that there's kind of a challenge there as well, which I quite like. A big advantage of plastic is that it is not affected by temperature. So if your whistle, which is metal, gets really warm or really cold, it will affect the pitch. But that's not true with the plastic. So again, you could see that as an advantage. And those are really the differences. And of course, you can buy a plastic whistle. That's possible. I don't want to, because I don't like so much the sound. So if I can buy something in metal or wood, I would do that. Anyways, that's kind of a summary. See what you think of my demo playing this cheapest possible whistle. And oh no, that's not right. See what you think of my demo playing this cheapest possible recorder. There are recorders that are new that cost like £2, but I wouldn't really trust the tuning. I'd rather go for an Aulos or a Yamaha, like a really known brand that have been producing recorders for thousands, millions, I think, of school children for decades now. So good bet. They're good brands. All right, let me know what you think. Let me know if you'd like to see more recorders on this channel.